Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Kerry Dupree. I will be joining you today live at the watering hole. We've started off today at Victoria Falls, and nice to have some kudu that are with us coming for a bit of a drink. So just a reminder that this is a live and interactive experience. You can watch us on our app or head over to our website. Don't forget to register. Let us know what you would like to see today, any special location requests. You can also use the QR code on the screen now or head over to Twitter or X. Don't forget to use the hashtag at Wild Earth. What a lovely way to start off the show today. Shame kudu look like some of these kudu have definitely had a rough, dry season. They're looking a little bit thin here, and I don't blame them. Not much browse or vegetation for them to feed on here. So a few very thin-looking kudu. So hopefully, yeah, as the rains come, it brings more lush green vegetation for these kudu to start picking up some condition and putting on some weight. So it was a very busy yesterday. If you were with us live at the waterhole yesterday, we did have a super busy day at all of our locations. Shucks, I was going to do a double whammy checklist day yesterday of mammals and birds, but I didn't even get a chance. We had lots of happenings, lots of activity. We had still had our hippo at Rosie's Pan that we were having a very close inspection of, checking out those whiskers on his chin, as well as all his fluff in his ears. It was quite close to get such a good close-up view of a hippo. We had lots of elephant yesterday at our locations. Springbok as well in Namibia. There was a Springbok convention all over the show. Oh, sorry, folks. Looks like lost our connection on our camera there. Welcome to Safari Hook in Namibia. As I mentioned, lots of springbok around, and we have a big young elephant bull that's come to give himself a mud bath. Mercedes Bean, thank you for joining us today, and I hope you are having a happy Tuesday for sure. We're just catching up on the locations, seeing what was happening at a lot of different locations on live at the waterhole. Just saying how it was a super busy day yesterday, lots of birding, lots of mammals, some baby elephants, and I believe they had quite an exciting morning on the sunrise safari. I believe Amy found herself a little baby wildebeest that looked like it was very freshly born, or I often say freshly laid. Very cute little wildebeest that still had his umbilical cord hanging and looked like it had been born very early this morning. So yeah, what a cool sighting on the sunrise safari, whoever was watching. Let's head over to Tembe, folks. We're having some trouble with our camera here. So unfortunately, our masked weavers seem to have abandoned their colony up in the trees here. I don't see too much activity. They were very busy a few weeks ago building their nests, but in the last 2 weeks, I have not heard a peep of a masked weaver. It's lovely to just listen to the sound of those white-faced whistling ducks. We'll have a scan, see if we can find any of these weavers. Often what will happen is a new colony of nests can be started by kind of a pioneer male might move into an area, start building a nest. And as he very frantically vocalizes, he might attract other weavers to come and also build their nest within an area. But if they do get disturbed by any predator of some sort, they can move out of the area quite quickly. Just having a look at some of these nests on the left-hand outside. I don't know if there's something in there or if it's just the shadow of a tree. Definitely has been a week of rather unusual things happening, so I would not be surprised. We had a very strange call yesterday. We did not know what it was coming from over in Nguma in Namibia, and it bamboozled a lot of us. We weren't sure, was it a crow, was it an antelope, was it an Egyptian goose with a broken voice box? Turned out to be a juvenile grey heron that was alarm calling for a martial eagle. So stranger things have happened. We do have those really strange days out in nature where unexplainable events take place, and even your most experienced guides are left completely gobsmacked. Thank you to our viewers for joining us. We've got Amanda. Good day, good day. Shame, I hope that you managed to get some sunshine. Seems like the southeast of Australia is rather windy today. We will try and send you some of our sunshine from Southern Africa. And Veronica is asking about the rainy season. Is the rainy season a perfect time for birds to mate? So you do find a lot of birds do have their chicks during the rainy season. So I find your larger birds of prey, generally like your eagles, vultures, and a smaller kind of, oh my goodness, a baby impala, folks. Chick, chick, chick. Tiny little baby impala. Oh, how cute! So we did see a little baby impala the other day, but it was a female that was in a herd. So this could be our second little impala of the season. I know they had an epic sighting this morning on our locations at Juma on the sunrise safari of a little baby wildebeest. But this is a very tiny little impala. And if they're not with a herd, she could still be like the first time she's actually bringing this little baby out into the open to join up with the rest of the herd. How cool is that? Tembe seems to be having very good luck with little baby impala. It could be because they did experience a lot of rain or late rains, I feel like. So it has been quite nice and green at Tembe, so perfect conditions for the impala females to drop their calves. Elephant bull over here, also coming to have a bit of a midday munch. Seems to be a new wallow just to the left of this elephant bull that the elephants do seem to be favoring quite a lot this week. So obviously as water levels drop and rise, maybe the conditions are not 100% suitable for elephants. And of course they do love that sticky mud to cover their skin with in order to protect themselves from the sun and any insects. So maybe there's a perfect wallowing spot that they have decided to create for each other. So So we did get a question from Veronica about kind of birds and why it's a perfect season for birds to nest. So as I mentioned earlier, a lot of birds of prey generally they nest in September, October, November, so just before the rains. But a lot of birds do actually nest in the rainy season, and that is because it does provide optimal conditions for raising their chicks or young. So there's like just like there's a baby boom with the antelope of the world, so is there a boom of insects as the rain comes. I'm sure many of you have experienced this. I had insects all over my house last night. Some not so interesting looking creatures. So as the rain starts pouring, so do all these insects start erupting from all these very strange places, and this makes perfect food for the bird species. So because of the abundance of food during the rainy season, such as the insects, the fruit that start growing, as well as seeds from a lot of plants and trees that start erupting, this is what kind of ensures the survival of their chicks. So that's why birds of prey are not necessarily dependent on the rainy season to have their chicks, because they can forage and find food They're not dependent on grass seeds as much as insects. They're more dependent on meat, these small carnivorous birds of prey. So it's kind of one very good example for why a lot of bird species do nest during the rainy season. So some common bird species we do get in Africa that do nest in the rainy season are a lot of your weaver species, and most of the kingfishers, the ground nesting birds, hornbills, sunbirds, as well as bee eaters. Just some of the birds that will take the opportunity to nest in the rainy season. We'll just have a bit of a quiet moment as we listen to those white-faced whistling ducks and see what this elephant is about to get up to. So again, with the rainfall and kind of all the water levels rising and falling in different areas, it's lovely to see all the ducks start arriving in specific areas. So there was, I think the white-faced whistling ducks, there was, 8 of them last week started coming through. And I think in the last couple of days, we surely have seen quite a few more white-faced whistling ducks. And again, during the rains, that's when we do experience a lot of local movement, a lot of the waterfowl species. So we've got some wind brewing. Maybe there's some rain expected in Tembe Elephant Park in Maputo land. This elephant was having a nice sand bath, helping to remove some of those parasites from his skin or anything causing some irritation. So Tempe Elephant Park is quite diverse in the wildlife that they do have within this park. So in addition to elephants, for me obviously, New Tembe Elephant Park is very much famous for their large elephants as well as their big tuskers. This park is also known to host the Big Five. So they do have a few lion in Tembe. Leopards are rarely seen, but they are definitely within the reserve, very elusive, like in most places. They do obviously have the elephant is the prominent big five that they do occur, and obviously perfect habitat for them here in Tembe, and you do get your buffalo as well. I haven't seen buffalo here in Tembe yet. Alrighty, folks. So seems like we got a little bit of activity at one of our other locations. Why don't we go see what's happening at one of my favorite locations, Hyena Pan, over in Botswana. So this watering spot surely is a favorite for all elephants, who obviously elephants do like to have clean water. They can be quite fussy like that. Can be quite unconsiderate as well, elephants. So they'll often go into a watering hole and dirty it up with getting muddy and unsettling all the dirt. And then they go and drink from the fresh, clean water source, just like everyone. I think you'd also rather have a drink of fresh, clean water. So you will find at all watering posts, the watering holes, these elephants would generally congregate around the fresh water. Lovely to see a tiny little baby elephant, and shame looks like this little baby elephant's mother, this cow, is quite an old girl, probably one of her last calves. The female elephant generally live at about till about the age of about 40, 50. I know there are some elephants that have lived there to about 60, 70, but yeah, depending on seasonality and from region to region, lifespan can be compromised. This is such a cute little baby elephant here. Wow, quite a few elephants today. So often we do have a lot of bulls that do come around here, but it is lovely to see the breeding herds pitching up at Hyena Pan. We did have two very small little babies there yesterday, so it was really cool to see them quickly rushing in to get some water. The Cape turtle dove or ringneck dove calling in the background there. And of course, you'll often find with larger mammals is the fork-tailed drongos will often follow them and swoop above to catch any flying insects that might be disturbed. The gestation period of a female elephant is about 20 to 22 months. And it's actually been recently proven that depending on what sex the female elephant has as a calf, if it's a male or female, it might be a longer gestation period. So yeah, it's quite interesting to learn new things about elephants every day. So many people out there studying, doing research to find out more information about these incredible creatures. A little baby elephant, when born, can weigh anything between 100 to 120 kilograms, or about 200 to 250 pounds. Isn't that crazy? A little baby elephant can be so heavy at birth. Females generally start to begin reproducing or breeding at the age of about 10. It's quite interesting in that in some regions, if they are under extreme stress and if they fear that they might, like numbers might be dwindling, that elephants can actually speed up their kind of reproduction rate, and they can actually have babies at a quicker rate than normal, and yeah, even younger. So in a lot of areas where elephants are experiencing drought, it's quite crazy finding some female elephants giving birth at a very young age of even below 10 years of age, 8, 9, 10 years of age, which is quite crazy if you think about it. But yeah, it's kind of all part of the circle of life and adaptation to different regions and less food source as well. Amanda, thank you for joining us. So glad to have you with us today. Awesome to have some new viewers. So welcome to Live at the Waterhole. And it's a lovely way to start off our show today with a little baby impala. Not many baby impala have been seen this year so far. So that was very lucky to see that little baby impala. And of course, always lovely to take some time to watch and appreciate these elephants as well. You can see this is a tuskless female on the left-hand side, which is quite common in elephants. You do get females can be tuskless, and that's kind of a recessive gene, so she could pass this gene on to her juvenile. So that youngster could have a chance of also not having any tusks. So it's not that she's lost her tusks, it's that she does not have any tusks at all. It's probably warming up quite nicely over in Hyena Pan in Botswana. So that's when you do find a lot of these elephants coming into the watering holes and starting to rest underneath the shade of the trees. Shucks, we have a huge elephant bull also under the trees here. Oh, look at this little guy. Oops, something seemed to have followed these elephants. What's cooking? What's happening, guys? It's followed them a little bit. The tiny trees give perfect shade for the elephants to stand in the cool shade of the trees. And often what they'll do is they'll actually stand with their heads propped up or rested up against some of these trees, and that helps them to kind of just have a nice bit of a nap spot. They'll put a bit of their weight on the tree and just rest up in the tree. I've actually seen elephants sleeping before with their head in the V of a tree. So their head was wedged into the V of a tree and he was just standing there sleeping. Darren, thank you for your question. So Darren's asking if the herd ever lets the baby elephants walk in front. So generally the social structure of the group is an elephant herd or family of elephants. Breeding herd will be led by the matriarch, and she will be an older female that has got a very incredible mind map. I mean, elephants have very good memory, so she'll have a map in her head, all the paths and trails. We have a giraffe. Hello, boy. Hiding in the trees there. How cool. I must say the coloration does look quite dark like a male, but I think it could actually be a female giraffe hiding from us behind the tree there. Enjoying the shade. Yeah, so generally the elephants will be very protective over that calf. The matriarch will be the one to lead the group. Often when they're getting to a watering hole, you see the little babies might get a bit confident and eager to drink, and they'll often run in front to get to the watering hole first. But generally when they're moving from area to area, always be the matriarchs in the front, and the calves will generally be in the middle of the group. Especially if there's any form of danger, or especially while sleeping, they will always make sure to position the little baby in the middle of the herd for protection. Looks like this female giraffe is just chilling in the shade of a tree. They blend in so well. Barely see her there. Hyena plant is looking rather lush and green at the moment. Love the fact that these mopane trees have got their leaves, and definitely makes for a beautiful setting with that sky and all those clouds building up. I feel like I can almost feel the humidity from the hyena plant. It must be rather humid building up for some rain. Kind of weather that you just want to go and jump in a pool and not move because it must be rather hot. You can also hear by the sound of the cicadas as they are humming away, signifying that the temperature is rather high. So Amanda, yes, Hyena Pan has had a little bit of rainfall so far. That's helping to bring the kind of leaves onto these mopane trees. But yeah, there's some trees, obviously their sap will rise before the rains actually arrive. So Hyena Pan is obviously located in the quiet private reserve, and it is obviously kind of close and within the region of the Okavango Delta. And as I mentioned, lots of humidity because of the rainfall. So they do have a typical subtropical climate within this region. The average rainfall in this area is anything between 400 to 600 mils of rain a year, or 15 to 20 inches. So the rain does often form in the afternoons, building up in these huge thunderstorms, and that really helps to rejuvenate the vegetation as well as filling up these well-needed water holes. So obviously by the time the dry season is over, the water holes are very in need of some filling. So there's a big elephant bull in here, folks. You can see his tusk just on the left-hand side of this tree. Saw one earlier, rather impressive bull. So these elephants, I mean, there's no point in going too many places, especially in the heat of the day like this. So this is perfect place to seek refuge in this shade, take a bit of a rest before they head out, and look for more food. Oh, this elephant. It's a shame. You can see this elephant cow here. She's got some liquid kind of dripping from her gland there. So this is liquid seeping from her temporal gland. So generally, elephant bulls are the ones that do have this excretion from the glands on the sides of their heads. And it can be an indicator of them being in must, which is a heightened state of testosterone that elephants go into generally once a year. But females, and I've even seen little baby elephants also having this secretion from their temporal glands, and it can be when they get stressed or aggravated in any way. Yeah, it's kind of just a very good indicator of their level of stress. So because of the dry season, it has been a very stressful, long dry season for some of these animals. You do find this secretion, but the rains are around the corner, or in some locations have already started to arrive, so it definitely gives a huge sigh of relief to these incredible creatures. The dry season is over. So Spasienko, thank you for your question about the Mopani trees. So this region around Hyena Pan, I've never seen so many Mopani trees in my whole life as I did on my trip to Hyena Pan in Botswana. So in order to get to Kwai Private Reserve, you do need to travel through Moremi Game Reserve. So from Maun to get to Hyena Pan, it's about 8 to 9 hour full day drive through many different areas as well as Moremi Private Game Reserve, and you just see Mopani trees on end. So there's just kind of never ending forests of Mopanis, different heights as well. So Mopanis are very much determined by the drainage of the soil. So some Mopanis, like this Mopani tree here that these elephants are getting very cozy with, can be anything from about 50 to 60 or 70 years old. But I mean, you do get other Mopani trees and other areas that might have very low drainage, which all the Mopanis will be stunted and at one height. And those trees can also be 30 or 40 years old, but because of the low drained soils, they're not able to send down deep taproots, which means that it's difficult for them to grow tall. Otherwise, they would not be able to have enough support, and in big winds, they would blow over. But yeah, so these trees are all naturally occurring here. And the elephants in some areas do very much stunt the growth of these Mopani trees. And what the elephants are looking for, they'll munch on the leaves a little bit, but mostly they want to feed on that cambium layer inside the bark. I'm dying to see this big elephant bull here. He's just kind of standing, hiding from us a little bit. And this other female tuskless cow is enjoying giving herself a sand bath. So this dust bath, this dust and sand here will be quite cool because of the shade of the trees. And often that's what elephants will use as a means of cooling their body temperatures down. To just watch these animals just chilling, relaxing under the shade. So it's when you're close enough to these elephants, you can almost hear their ears flapping onto their thick skin. Some of the very special sounds of being in the bush. That's one of the best things about being on safari, is that disconnect from technology and tuning into the bush net and all the sounds and smells of nature, just completely getting lost in the wilderness. I have a very good question here from Lady Macbeth. Thank you for your question and for joining us today. She's asking, is it true that elephants are one of the few animals that do have a shorter lifespan in captivity? So it is quite an unusual phenomenon that most animals do actually survive longer in captivity, whereas elephants seem to be the opposite. So it's quite a phenomenon in that because of a few factors, it does shorten the life of elephants in captivity. So these factors are the fact that elephants become very stressed and they have a very poor mental health when they're in a very closed environment, a very small areas. It is can cause chronic stress and kind of causes a lacking of the stimulation for their brains. So they do get bored very easily. Obviously, their physical health does take quite a toll. When elephants are out in nature, they do have access to feed on a lot of different types of food and vegetations, whereas in captivity, they're very limited in what they can feed on. And obviously, they have a lot of challenges with their kind of reproduction and their natural way of life. So obviously, all animals do have a purpose in life, and it's kind of to be born, to survive, most importantly, and to reproduce, as well as feeding. And if they can't kind of complete the cycle of their life, it can cause some trauma and distress to the animals. So yeah, it's quite interesting to learn that elephants actually don't survive as long in captivity as they do in the wild, which for me is always a very good indicator that maybe that's where they should stay, in the wild places with the other wild faces. Alrighty, folks. Seems like our big elephant ball's not going to be showing himself anytime soon. We'll keep an eye on him. In the meantime, why don't we head across to Stony Point and see what mystery bird we have waiting for us. Yeah. Looks like we have a juvenile gray-headed gull. Let's just kill it. Looks like he had his head cut underneath his wing, trying to get a bit of sleep and maybe get his face out of the wind there. So a lot of the gulls generally have red beaks, so it's a good way to indicate if they're juveniles. This one has a black beak and leg. So we are youngster, little juvenile. We do get the black-headed gull, but I think it's more kind of in Europe, whereas in southern Africa we do get commonly the grey-headed gull. And these gulls, my goodness, need to be very cautious and very wary of them when you're walking on the beach, especially if you're sitting having a fish and chips. They can be quite menacing. They will follow you like hyenas, waiting for a kill, or from time to time even swoop down and steal your fish if you are on the beach in Cape Town. Again, very opportunistic feeders. If they see a chance or opportunity, they lunge. They will surely Well, looks like we have our little Hyrax friend. We also saw this little guy in the same little posse, same little spot yesterday. So often these little Hyraxes can be quite territorial and do hang out in the same little spot, just like I guess if anyone is a fan of Big Bang Theory, just like how Sheldon has his favorite spot on the couch, same do these little Hyraxes have their favorite sunbathing or sunbathing spots. So generally, these hyraxes do live in colonies, and they can be anything between 10 to 50 individuals all in a colony, although they will be quite splayed out and kind of do hang around and do their own thing in their favorite little sunbathing, basking spots. Do have particularly good eyesight in order to spot any predators that might be lurking about. Um, I think I've seen a video of a caracal actually hunting penguins and hyraxes on the beach in Cape Town somewhere. So Paloma, thank you for your question. So, yes, rock dussies, they do groom one another. So, they do form strong social bonds with each other within their family group, and they do spend a lot of time grooming one another. So, yeah, I do love hyraxes. They're pretty cool little creatures, although nah, I couldn't be in hyrax mode too long. They just sit around and chill in the sun and yeah, I think it'd be great for a couple of days, and then I definitely would get bored. Yeah, so hyraxes don't actually spend much of their time feeding, so they do have very high fat content in their bodies, and they literally just probably 10%, 10 to 15% of their day do they actually spend feeding. So they'll go normally down in a little group together, feed on some grass, shoots, or roots. So they are herbivores, and they've got very sharp teeth, which helps them to feed very quickly because the longer they are out and about feeding, the more vulnerable they are. So, yeah, if they're out there in the open, they stand the chance of being scooped up by a big bird of prey. Black eagles in some areas do love to feed on a hyrax. Would be a great meal. You can see this foot structure of this hyraxia, especially adapted to climbing on the rocks, just like our klipspringer antelope, also very much adapted for hopping, jumping, and bounding on the rocks. And these hyraxes do have very thick coats, as you can see blowing in the wind, which helps to insulate their body heat and keep them warm in cold times. You often see areas where hyraxes do reside. Often they will urinate and defecate in the rock crevices, and the excess will drip off the edge of the rocks, just like you can see here. So it's all good indicator to see if you are looking for any hyraxes. Keep a lookout within these regions. If you see any rocks that are very stained, good sign, you might find some hyraxes around. I can't say the same for the tree climbing hyraxes, unfortunately. Finding it difficult to find any signs of hyraxes that would occur in trees. So in West and Central Africa, you do get the tree hyrax, and of course, in East Africa, you do get the bush hyrax as well. I've never seen the bush hyrax, and the tree hyrax I've only heard them, which sounds like a baby shrilling at the top of his lungs, and this is the male, that territorial call of the male to kind of find and locate the definitely gazing out, looking out to see what's happening out there. I do have a modified kind of facial structure, so the kind of eyebrows modified in order to keep the sun out of their eyes there. Oh, he's got a friend. So we have a question from Greg asking about if rock dassies have toenails. So yes, the rock dassies or hyraxes, they do have toenails. Little toes. Look at these little stumpy toes. Oof, this one is quite a fat one, I must say. Look at that tiny head. Huge body. So these little toes of theirs are specially adapted for climbing on the rocks. And each foot has 4 toes, and each of the toes is tipped with a very short, rounded little nail, which almost resembles a hoof. And again, very specially adapted for climbing. So the front foot has 4 toes, and the hind feet have 3 toes. Very cool little adaptation there. They do use these claws on their toes also for grooming, as well as scratching one another and combing through their fur. So just as we mentioned earlier, how they have very strong social bonds, so they will use these toes of theirs to help to groom. And of course, another cool adaptation of their feet is this very rubbery pad that they have. So the soles of their feet, they do have glands. They actually have glands on the soles of their feet, and this helps to provide a bit of grip for them while they're roaming on the rocks. Look at this little guy. Looks like he's almost got whiskers. I had a little Jack Russell that looked very similar to this Hyrax, I must say. A little big lump with a tiny head. Can't decide whether we're getting an evil eye stare here, or if this is just a very irritated look on a Tuesday. Oh, love the sound of the ocean, and also very unusual to have these hyraxes here so close to the ocean. So great chance to spend some time with a new little mammal species. I feel like this is a perfect moment, folks, to have a bit of a quiet moment, or if you feel like you want to challenge this Hyrax to a staring competition, I feel like this Hyrax is going to be a very good competitor for that. So why don't we just take a bit of a moment of silence, a quiet moment to listen to the ocean, enjoy watching this little Hyrax as he goes about his day. Maybe he moves. That would be pretty cool if he moved. Anyway, don't forget to take some deep breaths in, deep breaths out, and namaste, folks. Yep, I think we won the staring competition, folks. He moved. Oh, this little Hyrax. They don't have much to do in their day. It must be lovely to just chill around and watch the day go by. Although I think he's got a lot of work to do to get that summer bod in shape. Really cool. I don't know if any of you folks have ever done the lion's breath. If you're a yogi, I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. So maybe a good chance for us to do lion breaths here, in and out. They're very good to cleanse your soul. So you take a deep breath in, and as you exhale, you let everything out, let all your worries go, let all your problems from the day, and you make a deep exhale sound. So you breathe in. And if you have a lot of troubles, it's okay if your lion exhale is very loud. It's okay. I'm sure these hyraxes are very much appreciating our yoga. Spasiankov, I agree with you there. These little hyraxes are definitely a cute addition to the Stony Point visits. Lovely to see them here. And here's a perfect shot of those toenails that we were talking about. Check out those modified toes. Rather strange looking thing. It looks like they've got little trotters on the ends of each toe. And again, if you've ever seen the foot structure of a clip springer, you'll see that the feet are very much similar in the way of them exactly. Jake, thank you for joining in our breathing exercise. Yeah, I know a lot of us everyone's very busy in their days. Life can get very busy, take you away very quickly. So it's always good to have some meditations and quiet time in your day, which is something nature always brings for us. And I must say, lion breaths are a very good way to just let out all that inner frustration, let out your inner lion, and seize the day. Carpe diem, folks. I think these hyraxes definitely should be some brand ambassadors for a yoga company. I definitely think they would fill the role quite well. They'll sleep for most of the day as well. These hyraxes, they literally just spend their day sleeping and eating, occasionally, but mostly just sleeping and resting in these crevices of the rocks. We do. Habitat is generally savannas, shrublands, with desert, but mostly always they have to be associated with rocky areas and inland cliffs or mountain peaks. And actually also found along the coastal regions of the Arabian Peninsula up to Lebanon. That's pretty cool. They do seem to have a very wide distribution. I don't think they're very demanding in the food that they need. They seem to be um, not so specialized in their grazing or their feeding. They do generally feed in the daylight hours, and they do spend about, yeah, like I said, probably less than 10% of their day actually being active and feeding. And I do love the shiny, glossy eyes that these little hyraxes have, and a tiny little nose. So their diet will vary from season to season. So during the wet season, they'll mostly feed on grass. However, when the grass is not available, they are very adaptable to also feeding on leaves and fruit. They do have a three-chambered stomach with quite a healthy bacteria um, population within their stomach, and this does help them to digest the plants that they eat. So, because of this intense bacteria that they have in their stomach, it helps them to digest any forms of food that they might consume. You see that little toe. So, as I was mentioning earlier, see these little claws on their toes? It's perfect for grooming. So, he'll use this back leg of his to kind of aid and assist him while grooming his fur so that he doesn't have any grooming trouble. Alrighty, folks, why don't we head over to Victoria Falls and see what is out there on our other locations? Alrighty, so we have two hooded vulture here that look like they came late to the buffet and missed out on their lunch. So these hooded vultures, depending on the kind of age, they do have different colors to their heads. So you'll often find hooded vultures with white or more light colored head feathers on their heads, also black, and you even see from time to time they have pink faces as well. So it's all kind of depending on their sexual maturity and the stage of their life that they're at. So sorry, guys, I think you're a bit late for lunch. So normally the vulture feeding takes place around 1 o'clock. So I think they've pitched up a little bit too late. And I must say, there's quite a feeding frenzy here at Victoria Falls Safari Lodge during the vulture feed. So if you're ever planning a trip to Vic Falls, I do always highly recommend going to watch the vulture feed. Same time every day around 1 o'clock. Great place to go and sit and have a cocktail, watch the view, see if there's any animals coming down to this watering hole, and of course the manic um, vultures that all come in to look for their buffet of food. So these hooded vulture are one of the more fairly common vulture species that we do get here in southern Africa. So generally at most kills you will find the hooded vultures as well as the white-backed vultures. So two more common species. The more rare vulture species that we do get obviously are the Cape vulture, you see like the griffins, as well as the white-headed vulture, lapid-faced vulture, the more common and more rare species to see in southern Africa. Palmy trees are also looking a little bit green here. in Victoria Falls. Lovely to see a little bit of greenery. Hopefully they'll also experience some of that rain that they're experiencing in Botswana. See, very specialized slender bill that these vultures have, and it's kind of also a feeding adaptation in order to feed on smaller tissues and tendons. So these vultures will often need to have a bigger vulture. So the hooded vulture will wait for the white-backed vultures to come in and rip open the carcasses. And then after the carcasses have been opened, that's when they use the advantage of this very slender bill of theirs to pick away at any food in between the bones. So they're a lot smaller pieces of meat. But it does mean they do need other bigger vultures to open up the kills for them. Tom Ridley, thank you for your question. Yes, vultures and eagles do often fight from time to time. Shucks, at the vulture feeding, you'll see a lot of politics, a lot of squabbling, especially with most of the vulture species as well as the marabous. There's a lot of fighting that goes on for them to vultures to feed. Obviously, there's a pecking order, and yeah, there will be a lot of politics, a lot of fighting. Bigger birds of prey also do fight with one another. I've seen fish eagles trying to steal kills from other smaller birds of prey, and yeah, yellow-billed kites will also sometimes harass bigger birds of prey. Crows will also harass other birds of prey in order to try and steal their food. I've actually seen before a what is it? It was a African fish eagle that had caught a cormorant that had a fish in his talons. So it was quite funny. The guides were saying it was like this fish eagle didn't want to waste any time. He caught his main course and his starter all in one go. I think what the fish eagle was hoping was that the cormorant would drop the fish and the fish eagle could snatch the fish away from him, but he was unlucky, and the cormorant held on to his meal, which meant the fish eagle was not letting go. Spas Inkov, thank you for your question about what is the most common animal in Victoria Falls. So obviously elephants are very common to see around Victoria Falls, as well as impala and warthogs. I'll probably put those three at the most common mammals to see in Victoria Falls. I mean, even as you go into town in Victoria Falls, you often have warthogs roaming around in town. There's some very obese warthogs in town that, yeah, definitely need to be careful and stay away from any lions because they would be a very easy kill with all those fat bellies of theirs roaming around town, eating all the grass for free. We have had zebra in town as well in Vic Falls, and of course the elephants do also roam around in these suburbs, so you have to be very careful while driving around Victoria Falls. It is a town that is actually built inside a national park, so there's no fences between the park and the suburbs, so we have a lot of wildlife roaming around Victoria Falls. And of course, the baboons have made themselves very much at home in a lot of residential areas. That can cause a little bit of politics as well. And this poor hooded vulture looks rather confused. I don't think he quite knows what to do with himself today. So generally the vultures will find thermals and start flying up into the thermals around midday, anything between 9:30 to 11 o'clock when the wind starts picking up. So this vulture could have missed out on those big thermals. That's why he's still hanging out here. And we have got our yellow-billed stork that we saw here the other day, and he looks like he's busy feeding away. This is probably a male and looks like he is in his breeding plumage because he's got a beautiful pink coloration underneath his wings there. We'll just watch him for a moment feeding and have a look at that beautiful color that he has, crimson pink color underneath his wing. So this is actually a hunting strategy of the yellow-billed stork. He will cast his wing over in order to cast a shadow to help him see better if he has frightened any fish. Isn't he a beautiful stork? It does take them quite a few years to reach sexual maturity, so as in with a lot of big birds, so storks and large birds of prey will take anything between 2 to 5 years, sometimes to get their develop their full adult colorations. And in the meantime, they can be quite drab in color. Yeah, young yellow-billed stork looks rather dirty. He looks like doesn't look too pretty at all. Alrighty, well, why don't we head back over to Hyena Pan in Botswana and see what our elephants are up to? It still looks pretty hot. Still sounds like those cicadas are humming away. So generally, cicadas, I find they do change their pitch a little bit when it gets hotter. So as the temperature rises and falls, the cicadas seem to also kind of sing louder. I don't know if it's to drive you a little bit more mental or just because they're also experiencing the heat and suffering too. So yeah, they'll generally be quite loud when it is hot. We're going to have a scan and keep looking and see if we can see that big elephant bull that was here earlier. So we've got our tuskless female with her little one. They're obviously still hanging around. There was a huge elephant bull earlier that was a bit elusive and hiding from us a little bit. That elephant bull looks like he'd just have a lovely mud bath. I think this is him again, and of course he's got a perfect spot just behind this tree here. It's quite unusual to have such a big tusker like this in Hyena Pan. I haven't seen too many elephants here that are quite as large as the elephants you would, for example, expect to see at Tembe. It's lovely to see a nice big elephant bull here at Hyena Pan. Looks like he's got beautiful tusks. But yeah, he's hiding from us there. We've still got our giraffe friend that's also blending in very well, or trying to, between the mapani trees. Oh, we've got some birds here. What do we have? It could be the bush sparrow, yellow-fronted bush sparrow, or Petronia. So it'll be a pretty cool bird. It's actually a bird I've only recently added to my life list this year. So if you've got any birders out there, you're definitely going to want to get this one. It is a Petronia, yellow-throated Petronia, or yellow-throated bush sparrow. Let's have a check in the Newman's app. So I'm sure that'll be a lifer for some birds. Pretty cool to see those Petronias. Yeah, there we go. Beautiful bird. Only really notice the yellow throat patch if you see them close up, otherwise it can be a bit difficult to see the little throat patch. Giraffe doesn't seem to have moved very far. Shame. I don't blame them. They must be rather tired and lethargic in this hot weather. So some predators we can also expect to see around Hyena Pan if you're ever planning a visit. They do obviously have lions, leopards, and wild dogs do frequent the pan from time to time. I have seen a few pictures of the wild dogs through the pan. So I also speaking to the staff, they mentioned that every now and then there's a pack of wild dogs that does come from Moremi Game Reserve and frequents the camp from time to time while moving through. And other common antelope species you can see at Hyena Pan will be buffalo, giraffe, as we've seen, zebra, and of course various antelope species. While I was there, there was every day, I'm sure every day we saw kudu and warthogs that do frequent the pan quite a lot. And at night, obviously the hyenas roam through camp, so you do need an escort to your room. And there are quite a lot of porcupines that do hang around at Hyena Pan as well. So, Mayor, thank you for your question about elephant tusks. So, elephant tusks can give you a good idea on their age, yes, but there are other key features which can determine an elephant's age as well. So, it can be their body score. So, when aging an elephant, there's a body score from 1 to 5. 5 is basically obese and would be an animal that's kind of in a zoo, and 1 is basically an individual that's almost dead. So, yeah, it depends on their body score. You can use the tusks, but yeah, it depends on the height of the elephant as well, and it will often also depend on this kind of which set of teeth they are. So if you have vets and they're looking to get an exact estimate on the age of an elephant, they will just try to identify which set of teeth the elephant is currently on. That will give them a very good idea. So generally, elephants will have 6 to 7 sets of teeth. Generally 6, but in some rare cases, they have been known to have a seventh set. Um, and in their last 10 years, they'll generally be on their sixth set of teeth. And sometimes this is where elephants do end up dying, is when they have worn through their final set of teeth. Rosie Adams, I do agree with you here. It's amazing to see these elephants in this kind of green habitat, and it's also incredible to see how well they blend into the shadows. So I also thought when I was at Juma earlier this year, like how do antelope and predators blend in so well when their coloration is completely contrasting to green. But it's amazing if they go into the shade and lie down, they just completely disappear. Just having a scan and a look around to see if there's any hyenas. So, yeah, I have on a few occasions been surprised with hyenas just having a bath at the edge of the pan here. So, always have to have a quick look, see if there's anything else around. Got a good question there from Alex is asking about, do giraffe spots become darker when it is hotter, like sunburn? And no. So giraffe spots generally are one color. They don't become darker due to heat or sun exposure. So it's all about kind of the genetics of a giraffe, which will determine the lightness or darkness of the spots. And from time to time, it can be the age as well. So some older bulls will tend to be a very dark color. But for example, that female giraffe over there is quite dark, but it definitely looks like a female. Here's our petronias, folks, or yellow-throated bush sparrow. Very cool. If you're a birder, I'll definitely check that one out. I don't know if it's going to be on your list. And we also have a starling here, Cape starling. Yes, I agree with you there, Rosie Adams. Really cool to see the petronias. And we've got a juvenile. Something has just popped down here. It could be a juvenile wide uh, paradise wider of some sort, or a male that's transitioning. Let's have a look. Keep a lookout for this little crevice here. An interesting bird just flew into there. It could be a paradise wider. What was that? Definitely had some unusual coloration. So it's quite cool how a lot of bird species during the breeding season, like the bishops, the widers, pintails, and a lot of other bird species will actually completely transform into a different color, grow long tails, interesting plumage to attract the females. And as soon as the breeding is over, they will try their best to clip off these extra feathers because does make them vulnerable to predation. So, like the pinnet-winged nightjar. If any of you have seen a pinnet-winged nightjar, you can see how beautiful the display of the males is for the females, but it does mean their flight is very labored, and it does make them susceptible to being taken by predators. Okay, I think we've still got our bird is still in this little crevice here behind this log. Would be the right time of year for the paradise widers to start transitioning. Oh, this green makes me so happy. Doesn't it put a smile on your face? Very strong smell of Mupani's, fresh Mupani's leaves. So when these leaves first stop erupting, they do let off a very strong Mupani smell. I can't describe how it's almost eucalyptusy in a way. I don't know if you were to describe a Mupani tree smell, I don't know what you would use to describe it. Kind of close to a eucalyptus smell. And Rosie Adams, I agree with you there. It is really amazing how these trees are so reflective of the elephant's color and size. So it does really make the elephants stick out in these thick Mupani forests. Let's see what else is out there. You can see obviously all the disturbance from the elephants moving through these areas. It's a good place to look out for tracks. Maybe we get some tracks of hyena or leopard. I do often find cool little insects, butterflies at the edge of these pans. Mopani squirrels. You do often see quite a lot of Mopani squirrels in the trees. A perfect habitat for them and place for them to kind of have their little babies. The little Mopani squirrels can be quite menaces in the camps. They love breaking into guests' rooms and eating the little sugar or powdered milk sachets in your rooms. So when you check into your room in a safari lodge and it is all spotless and clean, please remember that it has taken a lot of work by the housekeepers and the team to keep your room clean. Alrighty, why don't we head it back to Juma, see what's happening at Gari Dam on Jura Private Game Reserve. Looks like we have some elephants here at Gari Dam. Lovely to see a little bit of water starting to gather in the dam here. Hopefully it fills up quickly, and yeah, definitely makes a great mud wallowing spot for the elephants, buffalo, and of course any warthogs that might be nearby. Juma is looking lovely and green. I know did have quite a bit of rain a couple of days ago or last week sometime, so it's been a nice change of scenery. Everything is looking rather green and pretty. Why don't we have a bit of a quiet moment while we just enjoy watching these elephants have a mud bath? So lovely just to sit and watch these elephants as they go about their day, feeding and just enjoying the mud, cooling off after a long morning of being out in the bush. Rosie Adams is asking about flamingos, if I've ever seen flamingos here at Gowrie Dam. I've never seen flamingos here, but I do know that flamingos are on the list for Kruger, and I know they do pop into the pans from time to time, so possibly like during their migratory route when they're migrating from one area to the next, there's possible chances that they will actually stop um, at some of the bigger watering holes, pans, and dams overnight, while regaining strength to continue their migratory route to their nesting grounds. Um, some of the nesting grounds of these flamingos are actually in Botswana and some of the salt pans. So it was quite cool. Some of the regions that I did some trips to earlier this year. We did, actually managed to see some areas where the flamingos supposedly nest, and I was super excited to see flamingos. Unfortunately, there was no water. So no flamingos. But yeah, they will have seasonal movements, especially during the breeding season. Shucks, this female has rather unusual tusks there. Shame. She must have a bit of difficulty with that trunk of hers. His tusks were very close together and very narrow, very forest elephant-esque looking tusks. Shame. Something seemed to have disturbed them a bit. They seem to be moving off with a bit of a hasty manner. And this little elephant is leading the charge. It's amazing how confident they are and then when they're faced with actual threat or predators, oh, they need the protection of their family. Oh, look at this little family group. Isn't that cute? So JJ is asking about the elephant's trunk and if their trunks are heavy for them. So of course they are adapted to carrying their trunks and they have become very used to carrying their trunks with them over their lifespan. But yeah, you do see from time to time elephants balancing their trunks on their tusks or on the ground. So an elephant's trunk can weigh anything between 100 to 130, 140 kilograms. So that's quite a lot of weight to carry on your face. Imagine carrying over 200 pounds on your face. Um, so it's no wonder their trunks do get tired from time to time. So you'll see elephants often standing at a watering hole with their trunk completely rested on the ground, or even they'll be sitting with the trunk, standing with the trunk kind of looped over their tusk, or even wedged into a tree, just to kind of relieve themselves of the weight of those long trunks of theirs. Jamal, thank you for your question about the elephants, why they moved off. So, yeah, obviously, elephants have a very keen sense of smell and hearing. So, they could have moved off here. Maybe they heard some predators around. Maybe they got unsettled by humans as well, or maybe might just be a bit uncomfortable. But also rain. So this time of year, when it's lots of rain brewing, lots of thunder and lightning, elephants do not like to be out in the open areas during big storms. So sometimes you'll be very calmly watching elephants at a watering hole, and all of a sudden they take off and disappear, and you have no idea why. It can sometimes be because if you wait around a bit to find out, a huge storm could follow shortly after. So I've had that case many times. You're sitting watching elephants, all of a sudden they just get a huge fright and run away. You haven't seen or heard anything, nothing's changed, and less than 20, 30 minutes later, the heavens opened and you were caught off guard, super surprised, wishing that you had trusted your instinct to also flee when the elephants took off. Christina, thank you for your question about where would one take cover once it starts raining. So if you're lucky enough to be in a little hide or a platform, you might be semi-sheltered or a vehicle from the rain. But if you were out in the open, yeah, you need to get back to camp as soon as possible before you get completely drenched. But yeah, some storms that come in with huge force, even on a platform or in a hide, your chances of getting caught in there are, yeah, you could be stuck in there for hours while it starts to rain. So yeah, that's why it's very important as a guide to make sure you're aware of the weather conditions and also to read the weather very well so that before you get caught out in a storm in the middle of nowhere, you are back in camp safe and sound. Although I must say, as a guide, over my last 8 years of guiding, I have definitely been caught out in the rain multiple times, especially in West Africa. I think if you haven't been completely drenched going back to camp from an activity, you have not worked as a guide at Zala. Because, yeah, I'd say sometimes 80% of your activities in Odzala, you are completely soaked. And looks like we've got a little terrapin here, which is great to see. Shame, I know the terrapin population has dwindled as the water at the Gowrie Dam has also been dwindling. But maybe now that the water starting to fill up again, all the terrapins will start erupting and coming back to the pan. Here are buffalo weavers busy calling, making their nests probably. So about the rainfall, I got getting stuck in the rain while on safari. If any of our viewers have any favorite stories you want to share about getting stuck in the rain while on safari, please feel free to send through your comments or your stories of your um, wet experiences. I definitely recommend, if you're going to travel and be on safari during the rainy season in any location, a good rain jacket is definitely very useful, as well as dry bags. Dry bags will save your life, or maybe not your life, but definitely your camera. Um, yeah, and I had a client once upon a time that gave me very useful advice that I've kept with me forever, that there's no such thing as bad weather, only bad gear. So for your next safari, just remember that. No such thing as bad weather, only bad gear. Alrighty, folks, why don't we head across to Hippo's Pan and see our little hippo friend that is still with us. Nice big elephant bull has come down to give himself a bit of a midday swim. And I wonder where our hippo is. This is exactly where our hippo was yesterday. Guess he's had to move a little bit out of his spot in order for this elephant to come for a swim. And I do hope that Rosie's pan gets some more rain. It's looking very dry still. It's promising for some rain, and there is our hippo friend. Hope the elephant doesn't make him move too much. Wouldn't want him to exhaust himself. Shame, I think this is quite an old hippo ball. It does have some poverty lines showing there. We did have a really awesome sighting of this hippo yesterday. We got to see him up close and personal. Look at those interesting whiskers of his, and yeah, got a very cool look at a hippo ear, which I don't think I've ever seen while on safari so close. You see a lot of little fine hairs that help to keep the insects out of his ears. But yeah, his whiskers, hippo whiskers, were definitely a topic of the day yesterday, which is pretty cool to see. Let's see what this elephant's going to do to our hippo. Whoop. As the hippo lifted his head out of the water, the hippo got a little bit of the elephant got a little bit of a fright there. He was like, "Oh my goodness, that island or log is moving." So I hope he doesn't harass him too much. Oh, we can hear some hornbills calling. Sounds like a red-billed hornbill calling in the distance. Cameroptera also vocalizing. hoping our hippo friend will pop his head up at some stage so we can have a closer look at him. So generally hippos can hold their breath underwater from anything from about 6 to 8 minutes. They have very well adapted lungs, can hold their breath quite some time underwater. So George, thanks for your question about the hippo and elephant interaction. So yeah, it's kind of like a battle of the beasts kind of thing. Hippo's definitely going to be on the losing end if he tries to take on an elephant. But yeah, a lot of these big mammals will be kind of a bit aggressive with one another in terms of just their personal space. So as long as they stay out of each other's personal space, I mean, elephant doesn't pose any threat to a hippo. They're not competing for anything at all unless it's a water source. But yeah, if the personal space of some of these big mammals does get invaded by another big mammal, they might just give off a bit of a warning display, but they won't necessarily go out of their way to attack one another. They're not at oppose they don't pose any threat to one another. So yeah, it's kind of you stay out of my way and I'll stay out of your way situation. Although I know often elephants and rhinos do come into have altercations from time to time. And I do know a hippo in Zimbabwe that is very aggressive and does chase elephants. And I don't know, one day he's going to come find himself a bit short. And yeah, but yeah, it's a hippo that will literally charge out of the water at elephants, buffalo, kudu, anything that comes to this watering hole. I think he's lost the plot a little bit. Yeah, so you do need to be quite careful because if an elephant turns around and decides to teach a hippo a lesson, you might give him quite a nasty stab wound. So yeah, definitely do try and stay out of each other's way. And off our elephant bumbles. Yep, definitely looks like we've got some clouds building there. I hope for this hippo's sake that it buckets with rain and fills up this pan a bit so he can hang around here for quite some time. There have been some oxpeckers that have been at this pan quite a bit as well, maybe hoping to um, snack on any parasites that might be on this hippo here. Actually, we can see his spine there. He's not in the greatest of shape. Got some battle wounds from a previous life to share, this guy. Yeah, you can kind of age a hippo depending on kind of scars. So the scars do tell a lot of stories for these old hippo bulls. It's obviously a big male on his own. The family groups are called a pod. You get a pod of female hippos, generally with one or two males from time to time. So Burke, thank you for asking your question. So yeah, hippo bulls generally will be on their own. Yeah, it can make them a bit more vulnerable to predation, especially from lions. I know in some areas lions will hunt hippos, and that's why when a hippo moves from pan to pan, he'll generally move at night, so that he evades any predators. Because if lions a pride of lions finds a hippo like this old guy out of the water by himself, they'll take a chance to take him down. It's definitely a good meal, a good feast for some lions. So yeah, he is a bit vulnerable on his own, but I mean the only predators these hippos have are mostly lions. So yeah, but you'll generally find the older bulls like this will be on by themselves, and in a river system they'll generally be quite territorial, and then you do get some of the bulls that will associate themselves with the breeding herds, with a pod of hippos. And again, very much territorial in the places that they like to hang out, whether it's a river, a stream. And you do need to be very vigilant of where these hippos do occur, especially the lone bulls, because those are the grumpy old guys that will flip over your canoe, and then you have to battle it out with the crocodiles. And hopefully not make sure you don't lose your Swarovskis in the process. Although I do know some guides that have actually returned their binoculars to Swarovski after plunging into the water with from a hippo attack. And Swarovski did actually repair and return the binoculars in good working order. So, yeah, I guess that's the benefits of having a very good pair of Swarovski binoculars. Alrighty, why don't we head back across to Stony Point and see what's happening in the Western Cape. So we still have our lazy rock dassies here, or hyraxes. We were speaking about earlier, the foot structure, and it's quite a good angle of these feet of the dassies. Those back toes really do have a resemblance of hooves, and you can see quite clearly there how they can use those back feet of theirs for grooming, a little grooming comb or grooming tool for these hyraxes. Yep. So these little hyraxes can weigh anything from about 1 to 5 kilograms. It's quite a big little creature there, or a big creature. I'm not surprised with all that fat. They do not look very active. They do have quite a blunt face, and they do vary in color from region to region and also species to species. So from a yellowish brown tan color all the way to a black. So one of the tree hyrax in West Africa are almost completely black with a white dorsal crest. So let's have a bit of a scan, see what else is out there. Any penguins? And we do have our little penguin friends joining us today. How awesome to see some penguins as well at Stony Beach. Seems like the same colony that we had yesterday. So we did have a colony of penguins here yesterday, also standing around, looking very important, hanging out on the beach. There are 18 different recognized species of penguins, and we do have those very streamlined bodies and adapted flippers instead of wings. So penguins are a bird species, and they use those flippers in order to swim through the water. They have also adapted feathers, also adapted like a little wetsuit structure. In order for them to be able to swim and be streamlined in the water. They are mostly found in the southern hemisphere, and you do get some species in Antarctica, South America, Africa, Australia, and New Zealand as well. They are very much prone to being in quite cold climates, in icy regions. You do find penguins also in the Galapagos, and they do live in regions, coastal regions near the equator as well. Exceptional swimmers, and this is how they the kind of method they use to hunt. So that's how they catch the fish, is by their very incredible swimming techniques that they have. This is known as the African penguin, or formerly known as the jackass penguin. I do love how cute they look in those little, almost look like they're wearing a little suit. And they waddle along on the beach. So penguins are mostly monogamous for the breeding season, and they do share the parenting duties. So this Stony Point and possibly Eastern Cape are perfect nesting locations for these penguins. They do like to nest in little burrows or under bushes or in rocky crevices along coastal regions, and that's what makes the Western Cape perfect breeding habitat for these penguins. And the peak breeding period is generally from October to March. Again, from region to region, you might have some areas that might have different peak breeding periods, and this will also be determined by food source as well. So Derek, as I mentioned, for the breeding season, so it depends on from region to region. There's generally peak periods of breeding from October to March. And in some areas December to February. Kind of this is when you will see more activity of nesting and egg laying. But again, the breeding is very much depends on food source. So yeah, as long as the environmental conditions are perfect for these penguins, they will then start breeding. They generally lay about one egg. Each penguin pair will lay an egg, and the incubation period is about 40 days. And both of the parents will take care of the chick, anything from 60 to 100 days before the chick is fully fledged and able to go out into the open seas alone. Lovely watching these penguins and listening to the sound of the ocean. Mirinda, thank you for your question about if the ice caps are melting, should we expect other penguins to migrate south? So yes, indeed, there is a possibility of some local movements from species to species or specific species migrating further south in search of more suitable habitats. Yeah, of course, it does affect a lot of species, not just penguins, but of course because they're so dependent on cold weathers and cold environments and the water source, you can find a lot of movements. A lot of impact kind of factors affecting the impact of the ice caps melting, which again directly affects the penguins. This is habitat loss, warmer waters, can also be a very big cause of these ice caps melting as well. But it's quite awesome that this area around the Western Cape, where the colonies of penguins are nesting, are formally officially known as protected areas so that the penguins can feed in safety and have enough food and also have a safe place to nest as well. Spicy and Cov, it is lovely to just enjoy these penguins. So You just listen to the sound of the ocean. I love this ocean sound. It's a very tranquil sound, and enjoy watching the penguins. They don't seem to be moving too much, I must say. They must have, I think, normally the peak period that they'll go out to feed is earlier in the mornings and later in the afternoons. And then during the day, they'll kind of hang out on the beach while waiting for the tide to go back out again in order for them to be able to go and feed. Lots of kelp being washed in from the ocean. Always keep an eye out, see maybe if we have any seals. Might be feeding in an opportunistic manner in these kind of little bays. What a lovely day it is. Cape Town looks like it's a nice overcast in Cape Town today. We don't have any cormorants. They're probably also out busy feeding at the moment. The lizards, these are girdled lizards or gamas. Oh, there we go. The juvenile cormorant. The kelp that has been washed up onto the rocks from the depths of the ocean. Generally, this kelp seems like it comes up when the tide comes in overnight, so around midnight between 12 and 2 a.m. A lot of this kelp will wash up onto the rocks and onto the beach. It's been quite a popular spot last couple of days for some of our rock agamas and girdled lizards to hang out in the sunshine. Let's look. We've got another cormorant there, also hanging out, enjoying the sunshine. So yeah, that's kind of how the cormorant's day will go, is they'll spend most of their day between diving in the water, searching for food, and then coming out to feed, and then have a bit of a rest, and then repeat. So, now these cormorants do feed on smaller fish, and they are, again, very well adapted for swimming. You can see those flippers of theirs, very good for diving in the water. So this is a juvenile cormorant, so it's quite cool when you see the adults breeding plumage. They're almost completely black, and you have that red eye and more of a yellow cere. So this is still a youngster. They are quite common, these cormorants, and widespread within freshwater regions. And he's giving himself a good old groom. Of course, because they do spend so much time in the water, they do need to groom their feathers quite a bit. Use that oil preening gland, so you can see him now. What he's doing is he's getting some oil from that preening gland at the base of his tail, and then uses that oil to run through his feathers to keep them from drying up. We've got a question from Eric. Thanks for your question about the cormorants. So remember, Eric is asking where would these cormorants generally lay their eggs or build their nest. So cormorants are quite a widespread and versatile bird, and they do occur in quite a variety of different locations. I have seen cormorants before nesting in trees with other waterfowl birds like egrets and herons. Um, but yeah, otherwise, some of these cormorant species will nest in rocky islands. But yeah, it kind of depends from species to species. And yeah, even in wetland areas. But yeah, a large amount of cormorant species will also mostly nest up in trees. So yeah, very adaptable, very versatile bird species, and very cool that they do occur in salt and fresh water. Alrighty, folks, why don't we head across to Safari Hook in Namibia and see what species we have waiting for us. Whoa, what a cool array of wildlife we have here. Check out these zebra, wildebeest, and an elephant bull. What a lovely way to end the show today. It's been pretty busy here at Safari Hook. Yesterday we also had what felt like a congregation of springbok that came through. We had a lot of springbok here yesterday as well. Obviously, all these zebra and wildebeest are rather thirsty, coming down for a midday drink at the watering hole. Our lapwing friend, blacksmith lapwing, is also still around, hiding in the shade of the tree. Luckily, this watering hole is big enough for everyone to share. Otherwise, sometimes these elephant bulls can be quite greedy with their watering hole spots, not really too keen to share. And looks like we've also got some springbok that have also come in to visit at the pan today. Oops, small little baby zebra in there. Oh, cute. Some little ones. Maybe if we're lucky, we'll see some young wildebeest. Yeah. So juvenile wildebeest often have that lot more brown on their like kind of crest there, so smaller horns. So you see there's some youngsters here. The adults normally become pitch black. Oh, this elephant seems to have a bit of a bee in his bonnet. He's all of a sudden not happy to share. It's probably a young bull, maybe going into must a little bit, just asserting his dominance, reminding everyone how big he is. Okay, boy. He will not mess with that elephant bull now. Shame. Seems like he's chased most of the animals away. See, wildebeest should have a few rather pregnant wildebeest in this herd here. Still looking pretty dry over in Safari Hook, praying for some rains in Namibia. Let's have a listen. I think we just heard some Namakwa doves. Perfect place for Namakwa doves. So yeah, this pan is very popular for the Namakwa doves and also Namakwa sandgrouse. Yeah, heard them coming in a couple of times. Corey busted is another cool bird See coming down to this pan. What else have we seen here? We saw black stork yesterday, which was really cool. It's been a while since I've seen a black stork. And these poor wildebeest probably have to travel quite a distance before they find water again, so they're making sure they drink enough. They're very adapted to these dry regions, wildebeest, but they do still need to drink at least once or twice a day. So you can see these two youngsters here, like a bit of a lighter coloration, a bit more brown. They're probably from last year. Oh, little baby zebra. This is just a cuteness overload. Check out this little baby zebra here. How cute is this? So it's probably less than a few weeks, this little zebra. Still looks a little bit fresh and bouncy. So babies, a lot of baby antelope are born with long legs so that they can still blend into the herd and don't look like they are smaller. So they'll have these long legs so that their babies are still at the same level as the adults so that they don't get singled out by predators. So yeah, often you have the little baby creatures, little baby antelope, very wobbly on those long legs of theirs. What an epic day it has been with such cool sightings. And of course, I love to see zebra. So lovely way to end the show with a little baby zebra. How cute was that? Alrighty, folks. Well, it has been an absolute pleasure with you being here live at the waterhole. I won't be with you for some time, but it is a big pleasure to have been able to spend this time. I just want to say thank you from me and the rest of the Wild Earth crew for joining us today live at the waterhole, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your week. Have a lovely day, folks.